Good afternoon, everybody. I have to speak loud, they said, since I don't have a microphone with you. Thank y'all for being here. We have several people from the state. We have outgoing our state representative, David Bird, back there hiding, and one who's going to be our news. And I know I'm presumptuous, but not really. Kim Taylor is here as well, along with other dignitaries and officials and many people from the veterans here. Thank y'all all for coming. It is going to be streaming on YouTube, so I'll try to keep it short. Our friend, my friend, our congressman, Dr. Mark Green, he wanted a 25-minute speech, not before he spoke. I do that to him every time. No, of course, no, he wants very short, so I'll keep it that way. Well knowing, he's a friend of ours. He's our voice in DC. He's very conservative. He's a veteran. He's a physician. He's our congressman, Dr. Mark Green.
Georgia. Go Balls. Great to be with you today. If my voice sounds a little bit different than it normally is, I'm recovering from a cold. I had strep throat last week, and after you get a cold, you get that cough, you're fine, then you're back to full speed, but it tickles there, and I may cough here in a moment. I'm sorry. I'm not infectious, so don't worry. And my wife is glad I'm finally out of the house. So she was speaking yesterday, or day before yesterday, at a women's event that I was supposed to speak at. And she said, "You know how men are when they get sick." I'm glad to be out of the house. That's what she said. Yeah, it's good to be better, and it's great to be with y'all. And I appreciate you mentioning all the folks that are out there. I see the district attorneys here too. Thank you. General, good to see you again today. There are others that are out there. I want to just mention David again, since this is kind of, more business. Last event as a representative for this area. David's done a great job. His resilience through this COVID and all that happened to him just is inspiring. And I really appreciate you. A lot going on in Washington, D.C. A lot not going on in Washington, D.C. But what I thought I'd do is just kind of give you a summary of where we are on some of the issues. Talk about this election just a touch. But I mostly want to hear from y'all today. So I won't speak for a super long period of time. And everybody can hear me in the back. Okay. The economy is obviously the number one concern on everyone's mind. Inflation is the highest it's been in nearly over 40 years. And it's the same people running the government, that were running it back then. It's the same people running it today. And they don't understand inflation. I had a Democrat congressperson tell me the other day, "Well, who understands inflation anyway?" I said, "Well, I do." And it's pretty simple. Inflation is honestly pretty simple. There's this much money in the economy. There's this much goods and services. Okay? If those are in equilibrium or in the right mix, you get the same price. But whenever you have fewer goods or more money with a fixed amount of goods, you're going to get more competition for that fixed amount of goods, and the price of those goods is going to go up. It's pretty doggone simple. I think a 7th grade civics student could probably explain it. And with the trillions of dollars that Washington, D.C. and the Fed put into the economy, matched with a supply chain crisis created by woke policies running ports in California, with a president who has passed more regulations in his first year than any president in the history of America. Regulations are a cost of doing business. Businesses have to pay to comply with those things. And when they use their money to comply with regulations, they don't make more goods. So regulations are a decrease in the supply of goods. You've got supply chain crisis, got more money. And then you layer into it an incredible, unprecedented assault on American oil and gas. When we were energy independent in the last administration, and in fact, oil went negative. Negative. They were paying people to come take oil away from the rigs and the wells. To where we are today, and the president and the smoke and mirrors that have come out of them and dumps, the strategic reserve, which is, by the way, now the lowest it's been in 40 plus years. That supply of oil for wartime, major weather events, now depleted. Oh, but by the way, he happened to give 1 million barrels to China through the company his son works for. But in that process of attacking energy, the price of oil and gas has gone up. And that's further adding to inflation. But if you're making stuff, right, we talk about the supply of goods, and it happens to involve diesel fuel, which, by the way, we have I think 24, 25-day supply in the United States right now of diesel fuel. Unbelievable. But when you look at that, I mean, if the farmer, I don't have to tell you guys this, y'all know this, but that congressperson who doesn't, nobody understands so well. If the farmer has to pay more for diesel to plant the grain and harvest it, and then diesel costs more to move it from the farm to processing to a place that makes bread, the price of bread is going to cost more. And with it costing more, there'll be fewer goods produced. So with all this money and the decrease in supply, we're in the horrible inflation, and it's all intentional policies of this president. Unbelievable. And so that's the economy. And it's all Joe Biden's fault. And I genuinely believe if they just unleash oil and gas in the United States, it would massively fix the inflation. It really would. It would be a huge positive. Now, granted, and the Fed has at least shown that they get it somewhat because they've raised interest rates to take money out of the money supply. They're doing everything they can to bring the money supply down. But when you raise rates, businesses that cyclically borrow are now paying more for that. So they're producing fewer goods. By the way, it's costing the average Tennessean $7,000 more a year for the basic goods to live on: food, gas, rent, electricity. That extra $7,000 is $7,000 that Tennessean is not putting somewhere else in the economy, which causes the economy to grow, which is why we've had 2 quarters in this cycle of negative GDP growth. So I don't think you could have designed to do more harm any differently. But that's where we are. There's lots we can talk about on the economy, but monetary policy, fiscal policy, and how we regulate businesses, industry, all the impacting the supply of goods is why we are where we are. And it's a mess. I don't have to tell y'all. Y'all feel it. Food prices up 13.5%. Electricity 20%. Gas 60%. Crazy. But they want to save the environment. Which, by the way, doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, y'all tell me. The United States produces oil and gas 40% cleaner than anybody else in the world. If you were worried about the environment, Wouldn't you ramp up our production and put the other guys out of business? I mean, that seems to me how you can save the environment. Okay, they're about that. They're about taking care of the Green New Deal cronies. Far more than they are the environment. Because if they cared about the environment, they'd ramp up U.S. oil and gas and put the other guys out of business. Instead, we're cutting ours and buying from Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, and other places. But I saw President Biden the other day, I don't know if y'all caught this, he made a statement. Nobody F's with a Biden. Did y'all see that? Somebody should tell that to OPEC. Yeah. Right? Because he went to OPEC asking for more oil, and they're like, so, anyway. What is this? 3.5 million people. And these are the counted numbers. A got-away, a known got-away, they count. It's when the CBP guy has 5 or 6, he can't leave them. He sees 3 or 4 in a way, and counts the number to deal with it. Those are known got-aways. If you had the known got-aways, and those that have come in 3.5 million. So we're not counting. We're not counting the people that are screaming across the southern border. And I've seen the videos of them in camouflage uniform, backpacks, carpet shoes, bringing drugs, bringing fentanyl into this country, killing Americans. 180,000 died last year. Number one cause of death in 1445. Absolutely insane. The president doesn't seem to care. 3.5 million. There are 21 states in the United States. 21 states whose population is less than 3.3 million. Meaning, every year, the president is allowing another moderately sized United States state into the country in this administration. Think about the costs of that here and there. And some people might say, well, it doesn't really cost me, it doesn't affect me. Well, when that illegal migrant goes into the ER and has to be treated in the ER, and the ER has to, that they don't pay, right? So what the ER doctors group, what the hospital, the radiologists have to do, they have to cost shift that to the insurance companies. So everybody's insurance goes up with every person that comes across the southern border. Jails. Wayne County got a jail. Robertson County Sheriff the other day told me 2/3 of his DUIs, 2/3, are illegal migrants. It costs the taxpayer about $100 a day to put somebody in jail. I talked to a county sheriff down in Arizona on the border, and he said it was costing him an extra $10 million a year, or close to that number, somewhere around, to house these inmates who are breaking the law. They come across, and some of them commit crimes, not all of them, I get that. Not the vast majority of them, I get that. But there is a larger group coming over that does. Who pays for that? Taxpayers. And it's cost after cost after cost, just like that nobody knows. Taxpayers pay. And you think about social services. We're already stressed to the max. We're broke as a country, $30+ trillion in debt. And we've got 3.5 million people coming in. Paying to put them in hotels, paying them to bus them all over the country. Every state in the nation, a border state. On the left, turns blind. There's a lot of arguments about why they're trying to do this, what they're going to do. But look, even if they're genuine in wanting to help people in need, who are they to tell me who I can give my charity to? It's none of that. What if I want to give more of my charity to better Gold Star wives or whatever? It's not the federal government's job to tell me where to put my charity. Freedom is we get to decide for ourselves what we're going to tie to put our chair. Not dictated by the federal government with an open border. Unacceptable. Last thing I want to talk about is just the situation in the world. Weakness in the White House not only affects our country, it affects the world. Vladimir Putin decided to invade Ukraine in a week of our withdrawal from Afghanistan because he saw an American president willing to leave tens of thousands of American citizens behind enemy lines. That is against the DNA of every American. Leave no man behind. It's the mantra of the American people. In fact, it's in the code of conduct. Leave no comrade behind. I'll leave no warrior behind. In fact, in the beginning of Afghanistan, you might recall the 160th, the Special Operations Unit that I was in, Navy SEAL fell out of the helicopter. We sent 2 helicopters, 60-something Rangers to go get that body. Leave no person. They were trapped in an ambush from that hill. In the firefight that lasted days, several of them lost their lives. We as Americans believe you leave no one behind, not Joe Biden. In fact, Europeans, our greatest ally is Britain. They responded to us. I was in Afghanistan when the British SAS guys got wounded, and I flew into the helicopter. I was in the back. Flew into that firestorm and pulled those wounded guys into our aircraft. Brits who responded to our being attacked, to supporting the United States. And the president or the prime minister asked President Biden if he would stay an extra 5 days so they can make sure they got all of them. Biden said no. A slap in the face. And he was told by the generals, if you don't hold Bagram, you can't get all the people out. And by the way, it's going to take 3,000 soldiers to hold Bagram. The president said, go to 600. And Mark Milley told him himself, he said, I told him, you can't hold Bagram with 600 people. I don't care, go to 600 soldiers. So they went to 600 soldiers and they moved to Kabul, thinking they could hold Kabul airport with 600. We know what happened. 13 Americans died trying to defend a defenseless airfield in the middle of a city where the fields of observation and the Washington attack coming were 0 feet or 20 feet, the width of the street. One of those 13 Americans was a Tennessee. Horrific weakness, indecision, bad decisions. And Putin made a decision. I think we can take it. So he invades, and now the death toll is massive. People are dead because Joe Biden was weak. And the tragedy of what's happening in Europe is really about, for us, China and Taiwan. Because Xi Jinping is watching how the West responds in Ukraine. If we keep Putin from taking Ukraine, maybe we deter China from taking Taiwan. Why is that important? Taiwan makes 94% of the world's high-end semiconductors. Now we can get into a discussion about how politicians past allowed that to happen, business leaders past allowed that to happen. That's the situation. Imagine Xi Jinping, this authoritarian, genocidal, totalitarian dictator, owning 94% of the world's high-end semiconductors. We can't make a fighter plane, we can't make a missile, we can't make a toaster oven. Because everything's got a chip in it. You can't let that happen. So maybe, just maybe, supporting the Ukrainians will help us deter China from going into Taiwan. But this situation in the world that goes beyond those two issues is all the making of Joe Biden. It's failure. Constant failed presidency as far as I'm concerned. There's one other challenge in America that I think may be our greatest challenge, and it's the divide in our country. And it's the ideologies have just grown so far apart, where they think it's okay to cancel what an individual says. That you can't think something, you can't have your freedom of speech, you can't have. They're all up in arms about, Elon Musk taking over Twitter because they don't want free speech. Us, on the other hand, we want free. I don't like it when somebody burns a flag, but I think that's their right. They have a right. And I was actually willing to die so they could have that freedom of speech. And I know there are veterans in this room who probably hate the flag burning, may disagree with me on whether or not it's their right, but freedom of speech is the foundation of America. Freedom of thought, freedom of religion, freedom of owning a gun. These guys are against all that stuff. And this divergence of the two parties has made governing very difficult. And you layer over that you layer over that the issues of social media. When texting first came out, kids would sit in the back seat. They wouldn't talk to one another, they'd text each other, sitting in the back seat next to one. And then they started saying things to one another in text that, well, you'd never say that face to face. And then social media came along. And that just got exponentially worse. Go look at my Facebook page, the things people say. It's horrible. And over time, well, heck, it tore down that conscience. And people say it now in people's faces. And this progression of just anger and frustration, hating each other for disagreement, is a real challenge facing our country. What I've done, wherever I've been, I've been many decades. I started a club. I called it the Wayne County Nov. And y'all remember me. All Reagan's at you fought like cats and dogs in the daytime, but at night they go out as Irishmen and have a little Irish whiskey. And they actually got some stuff done to it, despite the fact that they disagreed on those things. So I, Mark Green, started Reagan. And I started it with 8 Democrats and 8 Republicans. So you can't talk policy, right? All you do is we'll have a little bit of bourbon. Since I'm from Tennessee, I have a little Tennessee whiskey. Very conservative girl. We'll drink some bourbon. So, 8 Democrats, 8 Republicans, they come to the House. And the goal is to build relationships. And maybe with relationships, even though we disagree on 99% of the things, let's build relationships and maybe, just maybe, we can dial the dialogue down in the country and fight this division. Because we're greater when we're Americans. We're weaker when we're X, Y, or Z. Let's get back to being Americans again. And so, we moved it up to 12 and 12. And we continue to get people who want to be a part of it. So in December, when we do it again, it'll be 15 and 15. New York Times wanted to do an article on it. We said, nope, we need that. Well, we may get a whiskey girl to come in there and do a little something on it. But the point is to lead. And that's what we're trying to do. Not agree. Not hating each other. And maybe through those acts of service, say what we're thinking. But I think there's hope, because I think this election is going to show that the Republicans are going to make a pretty big step. A certain things. And maybe we save our country. We did it. I would predict 23 to 25. Some people are predicting as high as 37. How Stu Gingrich said 50, which I think that's a bit optimistic to do. Anyway, we'll see how that goes. But we'll know next Wednesday morning just how big of a margin we got. But I think there's just got to make sure we vote. Thanks for coming today. And one of the lucky things about the redistricting is I get to keep this camera. Well, I've been in Giles and Martinsburg today to say goodbye. It's losing those two, big losing. Thank goodness I get to keep Wayne County. Good to be with y'all today, and I'll take your questions. Or, ideas, statements, and goals.
January 16th.
That's a good question. I don't. So there's several courses of action. We can do away with it completely, or we can say, why were why did the Capitol Police just open the gates, or why did Pelosi turn down the assistance that was offered from the Pentagon? There's a lot of questions in there that kind of like really on the speaker. So why all of the video not going to so there's lots that can be done. I don't know what the leadership's going to do.
Up there, what's your thought? Do you pursue it or do you let it go?
I think it would be good to know what intelligence was disregarded. I think that'd be very important. I think digging into some stuff would be very important to know. But honestly, the country has moved on. Whenever the left mentions January 6th, they get, empty stares from the American people. They're the rabid, aggressive liberals that are all about it because the failure that they're currently facing. If they didn't have anything else, they probably would be talking about it. They're talking about it because it's the only thing they can talk about. So, they haven't got a win in the 2 years they've been in office. So, yeah. Yes, sir.
You have to get control of the Senate and the House. This administration likes to use executive order. How can you combat that?
Well, we can restrict, so for example, the vaccine mandate on soldiers. We can put it in the National Defense Authorization Act that it has to be unvoted. And I think you'll see that happen. I think vaccine mandate on soldiers will be gone. So, as far as the southern border and some of that stuff, we have to do end arounds. I have some relationships with the Guatemalan president, the Panamanian president, because I'm the ranking Republican in the Western Hemisphere. In foreign affairs, my job is Latin America and the Caribbean. In that job, I've gotten to know a lot of leadership in the countries, and I think there's some things they can do to help us with our southern border. And we can probably do some of those things without the president putting it in the budget. The president has to sign it. And then they don't implement MPP and some of the other things that pull people up. So there are ways around what the president's doing, and there's ways to undo some of the stuff that been done. Now, I don't want to create false expectations here. He has veto power. We will not. It would take some kind of miracle for us to get 60, get 2/3 in the Senate, 2/3 in the House. So I think we're going to have to use those funds into the budget, and National Defense Authorization Act, things like that, to get some things done.
We know what to say about executive order. One of the two bills is executive order.
If he has the right to check units on that, you have to have the right to the whole rank of his veto. There has to be some way he has to veto as well.
Yeah, the beautiful thing about what the Supreme Court just showed it to us. So, four incredible rulings, by the way, and I'll just go through all of them. One of them addresses the issue you're talking about. First, Roe v. Wade overturning. The beauty of that, life is safe, but also power goes back to the states. Reinforcing the concept of federalism and the 10th Amendment to the Constitution. That's beautiful. Confirming that the First Amendment really matters. You know, football coach can pray on the football field. Guns. Clarence Thomas wrote the opinion on that New York case, and I love the way he said it. Americans should never have to ask permission for a right guaranteed in the rights. Beautiful, right? But then the EPA case in West Virginia, he basically said that the administration can't write law. The administration doesn't have the power to write the laws. And so Congress and West Virginia won that case. And so what people have got to do is carry those cases to the Supreme Court. Because right now the Supreme Court's in a good place. In terms of Congress, we can oversight, we can bring people in, we can hammer them, we can threaten to take the budgets away from them if they don't comply. We can write legislation that undoes some of those executive orders, tag it to some bill, send it up, hopefully, ease the rest of the bill enough where he lets it ride through. Those are the kinds of things that we'll have over the next 2 years. But I don't want to say our main goal, but one of our critical goals is to make sure that we grow that majority in 24 and we put a Republican in the White House in 2024. So that's ultimately.
I saw something on news about in Nashville where they're trying to take some votes back. They said it passed for you and they were in the wrong polling precinct or whatever. And that brings to mind election fraud. And how do you feel on that? Do you feel like that is just the beginning of something that we're going to try to do?
No, I think this particular instance is the failure of the Davidson County election office to get the balloting right. And according to my team talking to both Davidson County and the state leadership on elections, that's been resolved. Looks like it's probably about 190 votes on the 5th, 6th, and then maybe a couple of hundred, on the 6th, 7th, maybe a couple of hundred on the 5th, 7th. They're working all this out. They will know the exact numbers. And then, how they proceed from there, I don't know. If I win by 10,000, it won't matter. If it's a close race, then I want it to recount. I want it to be, I don't want it to be up in the air. But it's the tragedy is it creates a lack of confidence. But this is a failure of the local level since their mapping systems to the state. And that wasn't done. So they were talking about waiting until election day to fix it, which would mean at least 2 more days, right, of that wrong districting. And so I think the state put some pressure on them last night at 4 a.m. this morning. Here's what I got to say about that. About 14 whistleblowers have come to Jim Jordan, who is chairman of the Judiciary. Get your popcorn and get ready. It's going to be fun. Look, they're going to expose all this stuff. People talk about impeaching this person or impeaching that person. Let's do the oversight hearings, let's build the case. If somebody wants impeachment, we'll impeach them. But that's not what we're about. We don't want to use impeachment as a political tool. What we want to do is impeachment to enforce people doing their jobs in their future. So,
how about some jail time?
If people break the law, they go to jail. But to answer your question, yeah, it's going to be a field day. And then in 24, if you get a Republican, they got to clean house. The people who violate the constitutional rights of American citizens should not work for the federal government. Period. So,
Comment, two things, going back to the military, we lost a lot of good officers as a result of it, and soldiers as well, as a result of the tax mandate. Is there a plan to try to offer those guys, girls, the opportunity to come back without them losing their benefits, losing their status?
yeah, we'll have amendments to the NDAA that have, take the vaccine mandate away, reinstate those and kick that out. You may recall that it was my amendment to the NDA that I worked out with the chairman, the Democrat chairman. I went and met with him and I said, okay, how do we wordsmith this to make you like it? And we got it where it was good for him, and we passed it, and he couldn't dishonorably discharge him, right? So that was, moved the needle a little bit there. But yeah, we'll have amendments to the NDAA that allow them to be reinstated. Absolutely.
We've got a case in the Supreme Court like that, on affirmative action, Yale, Auburn, North Carolina, have been looked solely at basis for admissions. Assuming the Supreme Court does what everybody anticipates and saying that is now unconstitutional, what do you think Congress will do with that change in order to make sure that that kind of thing doesn't happen to you?
Well, where this goes from there is there will be ripple effects throughout, right? And you look at DOD and hiring and things like that. Quota systems, if that's what it turns out to say, quota systems are unconstitutional, well, those are going to go away. Or they'll face some kind of judicial. I like the way that Martin Luther King put it. Content of your character, not the color of your skin. And that's where we need to be in this thing. So hopefully that's where we'll wind up after this Supreme Court. Yes, sir.
Since we have several retired military in here, the description, yes.
Yeah, so whatever, ridiculous thing. TRICARE contracts with all these different providers and provide services. And they made a decision to contract for pharmacy to a company that withdrew its relationships with independent pharmacies. In Wayne County, that means you're a soldier, or a sailor, or a retired service member. There's no pharmacy for you to go to. So now you have to drive to another county, and it has to be a county where they allow pharmacy to stay in the system. Which I don't know what the distances are, but it's way more than what it should be. So 60-mile round trip, that's unacceptable, especially with gas prices. Then you can order your routine, right? Have them shipped to your house. But if you come down the wrong times, you need a Z-Pack and a paper, you're going to drive to go get it. And that's unacceptable. So I sent letters to Floyd Austin, I sent letters to the president, sent letters to TRICARE, all that stuff. If they don't respond out to this, we'll just write an amendment to the NDAA and make them do it.
Who runs TRICARE?
It's a government official who oversees contracts.
Who makes these decisions?
The contracting group at DOD for TRICARE.
Seems like something that is very bad.
Yeah, it's called Potomac Fever. I'm a physician, I can make a diagnosis. Guys get to DC and their values change. They start seeing themselves as more important than others. They begin to think that it's okay to take from someone else what they've earned and give to others. They think you can spend money. It doesn't. It just comes out of the air. It's a disease. It's called Potomac Fever. Yes, sir.
I have one vote,
like we haven't, taken advantage of our wind, our power. If we get the majority in the House Senate this time, do you think the leadership will have a little more backbone and try to?
I'm turning my hearing aid up. I'm not texting while. Sorry, I'm old, ex-Army infantryman, ex-Army flight surgeon who sat under an APU waiting for casualties to happen. So, this is a question. This is what I understood you to be asking. If we get the majority back, we're going to do something. And I think the commitment to America is a statement of intent, desire. There'll be some of those things we can get done. There'll be some where the president just says no and vetoes them. But we'll move along those lines and try to make it happen. The border security is an issue. We will do everything we can to make that happen. Turning back on them. I mean, the guy turned off the cameras that were on the Trump party wall. He told Stevie P to turn off the camera. But it's just insane. Some of that stuff can be 87,000 IRS agents. Tell me you start hiring. But we don't get rid of that. Yeah, that's honestly just, if you detain people and hit the border, they stop coming. Detention is deterrence. And they have empty ICE detention rooms. And they put them in contract hotels. They're costing us $90 million a month. And then bust them all over the country. So they have done away with detention. It's called catch and release, and it's basically the reason why the numbers that are crossing has increased so vastly in the last year or so.
The American recovery act funds, do you see any rounds in the future coming down in states and counties and cities?
You talking about COVID?
Yes, in general, and some guys.
I don't think we're spending it. I mean, we're so broken, and those expenditures are part of. Some of it was necessary. The PPP program was. I was supportive of that, but some of that stuff has contributed to the massive spending and the inflation that's in the economy. So I think our goal is to try to rein in spending. Yes, sir.
I know, I understand. The CDC recently recommended that the COVID vaccine be put on the list of required vaccines for children for entering school, public schools, in an effort to circumvent the when the Emergency Authorization Act ends, so that they can't be sued. Is anything being done to get the CDC out of the CDC out of the pocket of Big Pharma?
So there'll be a lot of things that get done to kind of address the conflicts of interest that are there.
Multiple.
Yeah. The issue though with, I mean, honestly, the state of Tennessee doesn't have to accept.
Right. Exactly.
So that's all the guys in this room.
But we're all Americans.
So the state, I think the state is probably the quickest way to address that issue. But yeah, CDC has become on the sides. If you look at how they handled the closures of schools and had to, basically the teachers union write the verbiage that the CDC will use, that conflict of interest is absurd.
Yep.
And has to be addressed.
Is it something in the works? I mean,
Absolutely. I think the coronavirus select committee continues. I'm not on it. I'm on it now, but it's not one I enjoy. But I it's my duty. I do my duty. But I get my juices fired up on Homeland Security, foreign affairs, and armed services. I love being on those committees. But I think the coronavirus. But we got to get to the bottom of the lab. And did he pay for gain of function research in a lab and it leaked out and caused millions of deaths across the globe? I think Americans want to know the answer to that. And so I think the coronavirus committee in some form or fashion, will continue, and we'll look at all of it, to include Fauci and some of that stuff. He's gonna be a parking spot. Him and Mayorkas are gonna be a parking spot at the Capitol.
Have you seen any of the research done where
Autopsies have been done and the coroners have found these globules inside of people that they're having to cut out.
I've seen some of that, but honestly, that's not,
It's not mainstream. It's not mainstream for sure.
Looking at the vaccine and stuff, I'm sure people will dig into that, the sort of bait and swap on military guys, with the
Yes.
authorized versus non-authorized. Yeah, we'll look into all that.
Yes, sir. You speak a little bit, Representative. You speak a little bit about the bill that we were talking about earlier, keep the industry away from county government of South America.
Yeah. Everywhere I've ever served, the military, you go in, you take command, you say, these are the 5 things I want to accomplish while I'm here. Starting my company, these are the things I want to do, I want to accomplish these things. But not for profit, I want to accomplish these things. Last time in the state senate, I want to accomplish these things. And my legacy piece of legislation as a state senator was the repeal of the Hall income tax. Only 2 states in the nation's history have ever repealed any form of an income tax once enacted, Alaska and now Tennessee with my bill. And sitting in my time in Washington, what can I do? What do I want to walk away from this and say I did that? And got some good stuff on veterans, but I think the nearshoring bill that you're mentioning, the reshoring bills, can really make a difference for them. And what he's talking about is what COVID really showed us, and there were a lot of things, but COVID showed us an incredible dependence on Chinese manufacturing. For some stuff that's pretty important, speaking about pharmacological precursors, PPE, all that stuff, we were reliant on them. And that is an unacceptable place for the country to be. Well, how do we decouple from China? Question 1. When China was going through its rapid growth, they obviously needed a lot of raw materials. They needed zinc, they needed copper, they needed concrete, they needed all this stuff to grow. And they went to Latin America and other countries, but a lot to Latin America. And when you go to a country, a foreign country, and you buy something from them, you have to buy it in their currency. So China would exchange their currency for the Peruvian currency. And it would drive the value of that Peruvian currency up. And as it drove their currency up, it made buying stuff in Peru a lot more pricey. Stuff made in Peru. So with the Peruvians and the Ecuadorians and Guatemala and all that, they started buying Chinese manufactured goods. And their manufacturing sector died. Now there were other things impacting the manufacturing sector, but this was a major contributor to that. So, problem 2, no manufacturing sector, significant manufacturing sector in Latin America, decreased anyway. Problem 3, what happened to their opportunities in Latin America? They come to the southern border of the United States. So how do we address in a single solution all of those problems? And I'm a conservative. How do we do it without spending taxpayer dollars? Well, the federal government operates a bank called the Development Finance Corporation. That bank loans private investment money to developing projects around the world to help countries develop. So you sell a company, you sell a concrete company for $5 million. And you want to invest that money, you could give it to the Development Finance Corporation and they'd give you a market rate, 7%. And you sit back and you collect your 7% off your $2 million, $5 million, whatever. Well, the Development Finance Corporation, in my bill, the way I've written it, will loan that money to a company that's manufacturing in China if they aren't owned by China. And if or any other state, they pick up and move to Latin America. Now, I have another bill that brings business back to the United States. But let's face it, there are some manufactured goods you can't pay Americans to make them because then the price of that good would be too much, right? So, let's say t-shirts, maybe t-shirts or Levi's jeans, whatever. This company will get a super low interest loan because we'll use the China tariff money to buy the loan rate down, just like when you buy a point on your house mortgage, right? So the guy who's investing his private dollars, not taxpayer dollars, is getting a good rate of return. This money is going to move a company from China to Latin America, helping Latin America, our brothers to the south, our neighbors to the south, helping us push back from China's Belt and Road Initiative to try to take away our allies in the south, creating opportunity, economic opportunity and jobs in Latin America, and keep them from coming to our southern border. So it's a win decoupling from China, it's a win creating opportunity in Latin America and showing America to be a good neighbor and pushing back against China. And it helps people stop the flow of people to the United States, called the Western Hemisphere Nearshoring. I've got another one that's expensive to move to the United States 100% year one. That is a huge incentive for a business to come back to the United States. But again, that's only going to be very high-end manufacturing coming back. Thanks for asking that. That's the Western Hemisphere Nearshoring Act. A lot of articles written about it. A lot of Democrats like the bill. Democrats have co-sponsored the bill. I was very intentional when I wrote it. I didn't want to. We talk about that divergence, illegal migration or illegal immigrant triggers people on their side. So instead of saying that in the bill, I said migration that violates the laws of the United States. Same thing. Only I said it in a way Democrats can support the bill. So now I want to be a ship's captain. I don't want to be a lighthouse. You're not asking me to go up there and just yell really loud. You want me to get things done. And so this bill that there are Democrats who support. Now Nancy won't let a Republican solve the problem because she wants to win this election. And she's not. But next Congress, we'll get this bill passed. We'll get the other bill passed, bringing Chinese manufacturing back to the United States, or manufacturing in China back to the United States. And I think those will be legacy pieces of legislation for me. I'll be able to walk away and say I made a difference. And I've done other bills like the Burn Pit Bill and the K2 Veterans Bill, and the Gold Star Families Bill, and I've got tons of stuff I've passed, but this one could make a big difference. Thanks for asking. Okay. Okay, so maybe one or two more questions. Yes,
Yes, sir. I spend most of my time working with veterans and their families and trying to get them benefits and things like that.
Well, that reminds me, I want to ask you a question. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Can't please.
Ask me no questions, I'll tell you no lies.
Yeah.
But, like, for example, I had a veteran walking off. And like a lot of people struck when they talked about this TRICARE thing, what they were looking for is assistance to pay the property tax. Everything is going up. Everything, groceries, gasoline, fuel, everything is going up. Add this TRICARE thing, where we have to drive so far to get this. I think, trying to see if I can get some assistance with them. And they're typical of a lot of people out there, not just there, a lot of people in the same situation. But when you look on TV and you see immigrants, illegal immigrants, put up in motels, free laundry, free food, free phones, free transportation,
Yeah.
and we've got veterans and other Americans homeless on the street or in danger of losing their homes, it makes you almost fight mad.
It makes you mad. It's, yeah.
And that's our money, that's tax dollars.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's exactly. Actually, it's not your money. You know whose money it is? It's your grandkids' money. Because they're the ones paying back this debt. and maybe your great grandkids, because we're $30 trillion in debt. So no, it's not me or you paying it back. It's our kids and our grandkids and our great grandkids.
We can't pay more for military, and that's important to me, but
Come on.
what we do first, and that's what we do home right now. The money that we take about the bomb officer, the Trump Street 3-4 times, got back in the security community.
Thanks for raising patriots. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff we gotta fix. The list is long. Get in there and start looking at it all. Let me ask him something, or just say something. Camp Lejeune stuff is a liability settlement. If you have veterans who come in asking about that, if they sign on to that, they will sign away their future VA benefits. Make sure they know that. That deal is not a good deal. And I'm trying to put this out there as much as I can. You're a VSO, so make sure, if you have any questions about that, contact our office and we'll let you know. But it's a liability settlement. When you accept that liability settlement, you're forfeiting. This becomes your benefit. And you lose your VA benefit in lieu of this. And heck, the doggone lawyers are taking 40% cut right off, plus expenses. So the veterans are going to get screwed here. So I implore you, as the VSO, make sure you direct them in the right direction. One question more, yes, sir.
I was going to ask, is this really going to change anything for Wayne County?
It does affect Wayne on the congressional side. So it's, as I was saying, I get to keep Wayne County, and I'm pretty happy about that. Y'all unfortunately got to see me a whole bunch more. Hey, look, thank you for being here. I always love coming here. It reminds me of home. I've said this before. I grew up in a town of about 1,200 people. We had a blinking light and a single stoplight. Now I think they've taken out the stoplight. It's all just one blinking light. But in a county of about 10,000 people. So I love coming back down here. It reminds me of home. And it's good to be with y'all again today. Thank you for coming out today. You guys.